You can say it, bunghole.
It's not just bunghole. I mean, there's all kinds of.
It's
Yeah, I enjoyed singing that.
Before we get into the actual album, the new album, I wanted to talk about the evolution of Puscifer. Obviously, it started out as kind of a side project for Maynard, but now it's become this really established institution with three strong permanent band members. And can you talk about your thoughts on where it started and now where it is now?
I mean, we didn't know what it was going to be, the certainly it was, an avenue for Maynard to do things that he couldn't do with his other bands from the music side and also, the comedy bits and things like that, and doing a show that was a little more theatrical and a little more of a you don't know what you're going to get and less of just a rock show. So I think that none of us, it was kind of an experiment and none of us knew how it was going to be perceived and what the longevity was, if it was just going to be a one-off thing or if it was going to be something that, continued on. The three of us, have created some cool music that seems to resonate with people and, keeps us excited about it. And then continuing to do the extra things, we enjoy doing the filming stuff and doing the, all the additional bits that kind of come with in the Puscifer universe. So, it's fun for us and people seem to resonate. And, I think we'll keep doing it as long as people keep listening.
it literally started in comedy clubs back in the early 90s with a whole list of characters that were doing their kind of working out their material in the within the space with Laura Milligan called Tantrum, Bob Odenkirk, David Cross, Janine Garofalo, Brian Posehn,
So what is this Puscifer?
It's part of a lady, right?
Marilyn Rice Gub. Like there's a whole list of people that were kind of doing their thing, and I was doing kind of the music, almost comedic music, kind of closing it out. But as time went on, I started kind of writing stuff outside of that. The music, I take it very seriously, and so the biggest puzzle was trying to figure out how to bring the comedy, bring the entertainment, but also keep the music serious. So that was quite the puzzle. It took us quite a while to figure that out.
When I was asked to join, I had heard of Maynard and loved everything that I'd heard from him. And then I was kind of sideswiped by the record that I was given, the Puscifer record. I couldn't figure it out on the first listen, but something about it was there was magnetism, brooding, darkness, obviously his voice, and just I didn't know what it was, but I was in it. It was sexual, it was funny, the lyrics were beautiful, and I was fully enthralled from the get-go. I wanted to be a part of it. I think it's just naturally grown ever since. And at every juncture, there's been something thrown in there that has made me feel the same way. Like, what the is this? I love it.
Yeah.
And allowed me to like grow parts of myself that I didn't know existed within this art.
And getting into normal isn't, I thought it was really cool the way you guys shared your playlists of your influences, like leading up to the album. As someone who frequented a lot of dark wave clubs in the 90s and goth and industrial and new wave, some of my favorite music growing up. It was so cool to see that. Can you talk about those influences from individually and how it kind of all tied into the creative process of this album, Normal Isn't?
When I was kind of coming of age and listening to a lot of music, there wasn't, Sirius FM where you can just, put on the station that's curated exactly to what you want to hear. So what we would do is there would be nights, one night a week where, a club in town would play that type of music. And it was kind of, developing the social network of friends that have similar tastes and also being able to hear, the music that you loved that was a little less accessible in a club environment through club PAs and it really left an imprint, where I don't necessarily try to recreate those feelings or those sounds or those things. They're definitely in there in on a low level, um, and they're always a source of inspiration.
Yeah, I think there's a particular vibe that comes with every little era of music. Kind of has its parachute pants or its members only jacket kind of vibe. But like if the songs are actually the core of them and the sounds of them, some of them can stand the test of time and some can't, right? So There's like a, kind of looking at some of the 80s, 90s bands coming out of New Zealand, out of Australia. Like they have the quirky hats and they have the quirky stuff. But then when you actually break that down on an acoustic guitar, a lot of those songs are just gorgeous, just well written. And I think there's a lot of the early goth stuff that kind of fits in that category, but some are literally rooted in a piece of equipment that it's not like necessarily a pop song, but the vibe of it does stand the test of time. There's an attitude to it, there's a structure to it, and a sound to it that is pretty amazing. Not necessarily something you're going to go play an acoustic set with, but that's what I love about it. Is like it's singular.
And I'd like to talk about a few songs on the album, but I'll start out with Self-Evident because that was the single. We named it the best song of the year, metal or hard rock at Consequence for 2025. The best song ever with the word bunghole in it, I have to say. I mean, I don't know how much I don't know how much competition you have in that area.
Yeah, no.
If you can talk about that song, there's some really great vocal dynamics between Maynard and Carina on that song, and just overall how it came together and the inspiration for that song.
Matt, was that one of those napkin sketches originally? Was that one that I
Yes,
sent
it
over
was.
on
It
Legend?
was. It was one that you started.
Yeah, so it's pretty cool to like finally kind of crack the code. Matt helped me like unlock a new level with working with Logic, and I was just messing around with stuff. And when you only know a little bit and not everything, I think it's almost in a way liberating and better than knowing too much. And so I was just like throwing shit at the wall. So I came up with a couple cool riffs and just handed them to Matt to run with. The parts that he latched onto and developed, it's quite an inspiration to have those come back at you. And then it's just that back and forth between the three of us where we just keep building on these little stepping stones to get across the river.
Yeah, I think when I got that one, I was in England. It was freezing, and I was just in this like little cold room listening to those words and just feeling like everything was fitting into place. And I think Maynard had mentioned that maybe you mentioned you wanted some of the call and response stuff. And I think at the time I was listening to X-Ray Specs and some of those kind of real cool punky chicks from the UK from that time. And I think there was a little bit of a homage to polystyrene in there at some point, and just generally trying to navigate those words and and keeping it serious, keeping it beautiful and kick-ass while still, delivering those lyrics in a.
You can say it, bunghole.
It's not just bunghole. I mean, there's all kinds of.
It's
Yeah, I enjoyed singing that. I enjoyed singing all of that song. It appealed to me.
That's kind of bucket list stuff, right? You want to go down in the Grand Canyon, you want to go to Bhutan, you want to do karaoke in Osaka, put the word bunghole in a song. Those are all bucket list things.
Yeah.
Another favorite track of mine is actually the next track on the album, a Public Stoning, which really has some really nice, quiet, loud dynamics. The verses are quiet, and then this real powerful chorus. And just like to hear you guys take on that one as well.
I love to play with dynamics, and that was a really good opportunity dynamically to do a really strong shift from the verses to the chorus. The chorus for me is super cool, just that really aggressive, the vocal, the guitars, everything's kind of really hammering down those notes. That's a favorite of mine too.
I also wanted to talk about Pendulum because I think that's where the real goth influences kind of shine on Pendulum. I'm hearing Bauhaus, I'm hearing Sisters of Mercy on that one a little bit. I just love to hear about that one as well.
A lot of times when I'm just kind of doing scratch stuff, I'm doing it an octave down so I'm not waking up the family at 8 a.m. and while I'm trying to have my coffee. And that one just like hit as being, I got to make sure that this is in the right key or right octave for me to actually sing live. And it's right on the edge of being able to do that. But it just made sense. And then, of course, once you do that song, all of a sudden now you go, I think I know what the characters for this album cycle are. Absurd characters.
That one started out as a keyboard line that I did on an old 80s Fairlight synthesizer, and some of the sounds that come out of that thing just have an emotion to themselves. And it was one of those where it's like I found the sound and just started noodling, and then it just came out, and it's almost that first vocal melody thing that you hear. It's not a vocal, the synth melody thing that you hear at the top. really was a big stamp imprint of what the song ultimately turned out to be, I think.
The video for that song introduced, this character, Belendia Black. You recently announced this new comic books series and centering on Belendia, as well as these other two characters, Fanny Gray and the Synth Whisperer, which I can imagine are all the alter egos of the three of you. Can you talk about the comic book series and how it ties to, the narrative of the album?
We've had characters in this band for decades now, and the problem with some of the narration, when like when somebody says something about the briefcase or Billy D or the Chupacabra people, unless you went to that specific Vegas show, you never saw anything about Reverend Soke, or you don't know who the fuck Major Douche is. Because it was very like, you come to the shows, we're telling you the story, and there's all pieces all laid out like breadcrumbs in all these shows, but you had to come to the show. So when we introduce a character in a video, people just kind of scratch their heads. They don't know what the fuck you're talking about. So this is the perfect opportunity to actually put these characters in a little comic book graphic novel format to give you the entire history of all the characters. So we just spent the last 2 days shooting the same kind of interview format with both Fanny and Synth Whisperer, but also Billy D, Major Douche, Reverend Soke, Dick Merkin, and we have a couple kind of relatively new characters. Kitty Shunt, played by Esme Bianca. We're going back in time, so now we have the film versions of some of those, but we also have the storyboard comic book graphic novel versions to kind of for set the there's like effects we can't afford to shoot, so put it in a graphic novel form, and then all the gaps are kind of filled up. This is still Adventure Time. Like none of it makes actual sense. But it'll make a little bit more sense so that you're actually more confused now. We're not some kind of studio that has to go through a million layers of producers and directors and all those things. So when we have a thing in hand, whatever it is, if I up a line or a whole section of stuff that in a normal, high budget studio wouldn't even make the cut, we do workaround. We pivot, we make it work. We just figure out ways to take this steaming turd and turn it into a pecan pie.
Yeah, and historically we tend to lean into those things too.
You got it wrong. Let's just lean into it.
Getting back to the songs, you have some really cool guests on the album. The track in particular, 7-1, has narration from Ian Ross, which is the father of Atticus Ross from Nine Inch Nails. And you have your old friend Danny Carey, Maynard, and Tony Levin. Some really cool artists on that track. And can you talk about inserting a track that's mostly narration based and how that works within the confines of the album?
As far as players go, that's been something from day one. We always try to get our friends to contribute, and there's always a dynamic and a with working with different people, and it always sends you off in a different direction when you get something back from somebody. So having all three of them on that track, certainly made it unique to what it is, and we embrace and will always, have guests, on our stuff for sure.
Like I was mentioning before about me handing Matt insane napkin sketches on Logic. This was one of the very first ones, and so that low vocal of me repeating 7-1 was literally me trying not to wake up the family. I was like up on the mic, and that ended up being the final vocal on this thing in 7. But just the nature of the track, if you heard the original track, it has not much to do with where Matt took it. It's still kind of in there, but to me, of all the tracks on the album, that's the one that I feel like is going to go, and there's probably going to end up being, once we can clear our heads and make some time, there might be like 2 other versions of that or 3 other versions of it, just because it's wide open. I have another whole sketch that I was working on that's an absolute turd that will never see the light of day, but we don't give up. There's another version where Matt Chamberlain played drums instead, and Linda Larkin, the voice of Princess Jasmine, wife to my friend Yul Vasquez, she did the narration. So we literally have Princess Jasmine doing the narration with Matt Chamberlain's more jazzy version of those drums. Then it's a matter of like, who's going to play bass on it? Are there other takes that Tony Levin did that'll lend itself more to that Matt Chamberlain jazzy approach. So I feel like that was going to be the fun one over the next couple of years, with just reinventing it every year.
You have a tour launching in March. And, Puscifer tours are always a feast for the eyes and the ears. You just mentioned all these new characters plus some of the old favorites. Can you talk about a little bit about, I know you don't want to give too much away, but as what fans can expect as far as the stage production of this tour coming up?
Camels. No. Well, it'll be, it'll be a more elaborate version of what you saw for some of the exchange show that we recorded, Self-Evident. So that live footage and some from Pendulum, that stage setup, Matt's adjusting and massaging that. Because of course, the more we might, we're going to sell out Red Rocks this time, but that's a big stage. There's places in other states where we're not playing to a lot of people, just because it's just the nature of the world we live in, and some people get it, some people don't. So you're playing to less people, so that means the stage is smaller. So he's designing a set that it's like modular in a way. We can adjust it, but it'll be a very similar but better setup to what you saw on that video.
This is kind of a fun one, maybe a little corny, but the name of the album is Normal Isn't. And I wanted to know if you can talk about each of your bandmates and say one thing that isn't normal about them.
The work ethic and the ability to lean into the insane when we get thrown sideways, leaning into that and embracing it and trying to make something out of the chaos, and finding people that want to do that too. That's the not normal.
And and the not normal with us, the three of us, is that we're actually early, and or which is on time is late if you're not early. I can't say that about any of my projects. No one's on fucking time. We're on time. That's not normal, but we get shit done because of it. You're kind of goal oriented and respect each other's time and space, so we get shit done.
When I first started working with these guys, nothing was normal to me, the way they worked. I remember being in the studio, just watching the dynamic and the speed and the ethic and the way Maynard handled giving people freedom with their own strength, and how Matt was just like not precious about certain things that I thought were great or had heard in a certain way, and it was just gone, and then the whole song would be something else. And to me, that wasn't normal. And now it's my everyday life. I've integrated that into my own work ethic and how I see things and how I work in other things outside of Puscifer. And what wasn't normal now is, yeah, they're just freaks. I love them.